we'll jump right into the first presentation. I want to introduce Tanaka. Jared is actually one of the supervisors that works for me in Public Works. Jared has been with our environmental inspections group since 2014. He currently supervises the erosion control inspectors for Douglas County. So he has a team that covers countywide, mostly construction projects, but they do a lot of other stuff too, facility management work, manage some special contracts that we have on mitigation sites. They also respond to spills and do a lot of public outreach to folks like you that maybe are dealing with a situation on your land and need some assistance to take a look at different ideas on how to deal with it. Previously, he worked for the state of Maryland as a compliance specialist for the Water Management Administration. And what I really like about Jared is he really believes in a pragmatic approach. So I know you're accustomed to seeing construction sites that have, you know, thousands of feet of silt fence and all these different very expensive BMPs in place to help with erosion control. Jared really tries to minimize the throwaway stuff that you see on construction job sites and use things like diversion dams made, you know, and diversion ditches just in the natural contours of the property, rock check dams, other features like that, so that we don't end up using a whole bunch of materials on a job site that we end up throwing in the trash and filling up the landfill. So with that, I will turn it over to Jared. I'm going to help him get his presentation up and running, and then turn it over to him.
Okay, thank you, Dan. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for coming. I'll try to mumble less than I typically do so you can hear me over the crunch of some potato chips, maybe. So see how we can get this done. Yeah, to echo what Dan was saying, the department, we've started to look at net environmental impact is kind of what we're after right now. Sometimes we do things with good purpose in mind, but truly what we're doing can sometimes be one step forward, two steps back. So yeah, in terms of being pragmatic with our approach, that is absolutely what we're trying to do. And I'll touch on that a bit later when we talk about composting and the benefits that may have, both in terms of disposal and regeneration of vegetation. So as Dan said, our group regulates the DESC and GESC, which is drainage, erosion, sediment control, and grading, erosion, sediment control for primarily construction projects throughout the county. We regulate that they have adequate control measures in place, that we're reducing erosion, reducing downstream impacts. But with that, also as Dan said, we are a resource. That's how we view ourselves. We're happy to come to your property, whether it be a regulated activity or not. Give you our 2 cents. We see a lot every day, hundreds of construction projects at a time when they're at their most vulnerable. That is completely denuded of vegetation with just bare soil there. So as we get started, my email address is there. Feel free to reach out to me directly with any questions about what we talk about today or your properties in general. Be happy to coordinate a time to get out to your property and see what we can do. This photo right here is one of the more extreme cases of erosion that you'll see. There's another one in here as well. Erosion happens to be one of the most beautiful landforms there is. It creates all kinds of wonderful things. Unfortunately, until it gets to that level of beauty, it's destroyed a whole lot upstream. So let's dive in. So what is water erosion? Water erosion occurs when rain or snowmelt displaces the soil on the ground. The more water flowing over the land, the more soil particles are moved or transported away. Land that has no vegetation, including farm fields that are left barren after crop harvest, are especially vulnerable to water erosion. So for all intents and purposes here in Colorado, there's 4 main types of water erosion. They are splash or raindrop erosion, sheet erosion, rill, and gully erosion. The omission there is coastal erosion, which happens all over the coast, and we're a long way from that. So we'll skip that one. Splash or raindrop erosion is what it sounds like. It is soil particles being dislodged by the force of a raindrop. It's literally every time a drop of rain lands, it hits exposed soil, it breaks apart that soil structure and transports something downstream. Obviously, over the past few months, we've seen pretty severe cases of that, and obviously the harder it rains, to include hail, is the more of those soil particles that are being dislodged and later transported. Accumulation of the raindrop erosion creates sheet erosion, and that is the effects and combination of raindrop erosion flowing across the land, transporting dislodged soil downhill. Water is dispersed slowly and flows relatively slowly. So there's not nearly the amount of erosive power here as we're about to see, but these happen in sequence. Obviously, the rain lands, it forms a sheet, then it forms a rill. So I'm sure we've seen this from time to time. This is a fairly extreme example as well. So rill erosion is the creation of shallow channels by concentration of sheet flows. Water begins to flow in definite paths, increasing the velocity and erosive power. So as those channels are getting formed, water is moving faster down the hill because it has a more efficient path. And next, and this is the most spectacular version of gully erosion that I know of. That's the Grand Canyon, obviously. But gully erosion is soil particles transported quickly through deep and or wide channels. Mass erosion occurs as water flows freely and rapidly towards a low point. Effectively, that's water finding its level, and when you have that amount of force and energy, velocity, and volume, significant erosion can occur there, and that's what we're trying to prevent. So why do we care about erosion? Here are the issues that happen when soil erodes. Nutrients and microorganisms critical to plant vigor are displaced. Upland eroded areas' ability to sustain life is diminished. Lack of established vegetation uphill contributes to additional erosion. And excess nutrients wash downstream, creating algal blooms and dead zones. So all the good stuff that's required to maintain vegetation has made its way downhill. It's oversaturated those downhill areas with an excess of pollutants and stripping everything that's needed to grow plants from the uphill areas. It's cyclical in nature, obviously, as that topsoil and those nutrients are transported downhill, it opens it up for all of that erosion to occur and keeps happening over and over. So ounce of prevention worth a pound of medicine, or whatever that saying is. So the key to all of this is preserving vegetation where it exists. If you don't need to disturb it, if you don't need to remove it, don't. So as the slide reads, preservation of vegetation is the key to preventing migration of topsoil. The leaves or the blades of grass, they reduce the force of the raindrop erosion. So starting at the very beginning of the erosion process, it's the actual blades of grass that are protecting the soil from being dislodged at the raindrop level. Next, as those raindrops work their way to the soil, they saturate the soil, and then runoff begins to occur. The root structure of these plants, established plants, will lock that soil in place and prevent it from working its way downstream. The decomposition of leaf material of the grass itself over time, it contributes to topsoil creation. So state of Colorado, not known for their lovely, deep, dark topsoil in my experiences. So what that's doing is obviously the decomposition of that vegetation is contributing to that organic matter, which in turn is helping future generations of that species to survive. The composted material holds 20 times its weight in water. So as that water is falling to the ground, that compost that exists there naturally, as it would occur, is soaking up a significant amount of that water to prevent it from becoming sheet and later rill and later gully erosion. So overgrazing of livestock accelerates erosion by denuding all vegetation. So rotation of livestock is kind of key to that. Anywhere that they're eating down to the roots, whether it be cows, horses, anything, we are creating an erosive condition which soil will soon be leaving your property and making its way downstream. You're giving your neighbor free topsoil, essentially. So if we're unable to prevent it and it occurs, here's a few tips in terms of repairing that erosion. Timely restoration of topography and vegetation is critical. So as we're identifying those issues, the quicker that we're able to reestablish that root system, those leaves and blades of grass, the better off we're going to be for that next rain event. So instead of sitting idly by while the topsoil continues to erode, the sooner that root mass gets reestablished, the better off we're going to be. Supplementing native species with cover or nurse crops that quickly generate reduces splash and sheet erosion. So something, we have what's known as a permanent seed mix and temporary seed mixes and everything in between. But it's that temporary, it's that quick germination that's going to prevent maybe not the actual next rain event, but subsequent rain events from creating more and more erosion. So the quicker that we get roots in the ground, the better off we're going to be. Protects the native species, gives them some shade for the summer, and it provides some organic material to be there as those annual species die off. It also, the quick establishment of vegetation also reduces the likelihood that invasive species, noxious weeds and the like will infest your properties because we're presenting competition earlier in the game than we may otherwise. Temporary irrigation is recommended to expedite germination. It is night and day between irrigated and non-irrigated areas. So I'll frequently recommend somebody dragging a hose out there for a few weeks. It's a bit of a pain, but once we get that root mass established, once we get some germination of that, we're much better prepared for that next rain event. And as the photo would depict there, repair of small rills prevents formation of gullies. Sheet flows are far less erosive than the concentrated flows. The concentrated flows are through the rills and gullies. The sheet flow is more dispersed and less erosive. So even a small piece of equipment like this gentleman has here is very effective at preventing those rills, small rills, from becoming large gullies. So again, constant maintenance. More on erosion repair. Diversion of upstream sheet flows may facilitate seed germination. Ditches and or berms reduce run-on drainage flows and keep seed in place. Temporary measure until vegetation can get established in specific areas. So if you look here, let's see if I can do this. Here, that is the diversion right there. So as water flows from right to left on the screen, it's going to be intercepted or diverted by a structure such as that. Could be a simple ditch, gully, berm, and it would protect that in essence. So if you have, say, 100 acres right upstream flowing across this, and we get one of those gully washers, those 1.5 inch events, chances are whatever seed you just put here is going to end up down in your neighbors with all your lovely topsoil that you've already given them. So by diverting that flow around there, we're eliminating all of that run-on condition. So that large upstream drainage area is intercepted, and now we're just getting the water that would actually land on the area that we care about there. So that's the concept there. So that would be a means of establishing probably a larger area that needs to be revegetated. So in terms of erosion repair, utilization of erosion control measures are recommended. Erosion control blanket, which I'm sure everybody's seen driving down the roadways. That's this product here underlying that. Looks kind of like a jute net, if you will. That's one product there. The benefits of that is it reduces the raindrop erosion. So as the rain is landing on that product, it's absorbing it, it's deflecting it, it's not allowing it to start the erosion process. The second product there, it also encourages seed to soil contact. So most people think that product has seed embedded in it. It does not. The first process is a seed bed preparation as you would for any other seed. Typically rake that through 1/4 inch or so, and then that product gets installed and stapled in. So that keeps the seed in contact with the soil, hopefully preventing it from washing down slopes. Next product is a sediment control log, AKA straw wattle. And that's this product here. It's properly installed in this case, so far as I can tell. That being, it's installed on a contour. As it works its way down the hill, that disperses that flow. It slows the velocity as it hits each one of those checks. It's going to slow it out. It's going to drop the sediment that's accumulated upstream. And it's going to allow, hopefully, this to grow in between these layers of controls because the velocity and the volume of water has been intercepted by that product. Next is a compost blanket, probably one of my favorite means of restoration. That's what this gentleman's doing here. He's blowing compost onto a pretty steep hillside. The benefits of that is it also reduces raindrop erosion. It retains the water, as we talked about, 20 times its weight. So that water is going to fall there and stay there. And it's going to saturate the compost and the soil underneath, and the seed will germinate. And obviously, it's going to provide nutrients for the vegetation. So it's all right there. The water's retained, the nutrients are there, and we've reduced the likelihood that it's going to work its way downhill. And check dams, in that previous example where we had a diversion around there, that's a device used to slow velocity flowing within concentrated flows. So the sheet flow versus concentrated flow, sheet is less erosive, but when we concentrate that in a ditch, in a berm, now we've concentrated that flow, we've increased that erosive ability there, so that device would counteract that and slow that velocity to reduce the erosion. So long-term maintenance recommendations from my eyes. Number one is to prevent overgrazing. Again, keep that vegetation where it's at by whatever means. If there's any ways to do that, I strongly recommend it. Keep that root mass intact to prevent that erosion from occurring. I would also strongly recommend composting organic material to improve soil quality to be used as a top dressing for your vegetation. I'm assuming a lot of you guys have properties, larger properties with some form of livestock on it. Perfect source of compost right there. I would keep it, I would use it, I would turn it, I would keep it on the property and keep top dressing the existing vegetation to maximize the topsoil that you actually have on your property. I would recommend mowing seldomly to allow regeneration of grasses. As in allow the seed heads to form on the native vegetation, let them drop and resow themselves, if you will. A lot of the native grasses require zero maintenance whatsoever once they're firmly established. If you drive down through Larkspur, down 105, those pastures, those fields have been there for generations. There's zero maintenance performed on them. So, and then again, repair erosion, treat noxious weeds, and reestablish desired vegetation promptly to prevent more significant issues later. Treat small problems while they're small. Big problems are very expensive. It'd be quite costly to repair the Grand Canyon, I'm imagining. So. And that's about it. We can just summarize the few ideas that I had there. Again, preserve existing vegetation as much as possible. Repair evidence of erosion as soon as possible to prevent more severe forms of erosion later. Restore non-invasive vegetation promptly to reduce raindrop and sheet erosion, thereby reducing rill and gully erosion. Create, retain, and utilize topsoil and compost to prevent erosion through water absorption and vegetation establishment. So again, ounce of prevention is a pound of cure. So that's kind of the summary of it all. That's all I have to say about erosion. You guys have my contact information. I'm happy to help on you guys' properties if we can be of help. Yes, sir.
Are the compost logs expected to decompose?
The logs themselves?
Yes.
So there is a nylon fiber in there, effectively a pantyhose that gets filled with compost. And that's, for everyone's knowledge, that is a product akin to the sediment control log. One is filled with straw and wrapped in that fiber, and the other is it's blown in compost. And it can go, the benefit of that, it can go hundreds and hundreds of feet. And what I like about it is we're introducing compost. Wherever we can have compost and attempt to establish that vegetation, I'm a proponent of. Some of those products, and it depends on the manufacturer, are intended to photodegrade. So the longer they're in the sun, they break down. I'll caution you on that. I don't think they photodegrade terribly well in my experiences. They become just looks like a nylon tumbleweed over time. So essentially, I would never recommend a product that would photodegrade. It's difficult to do. They're very easy to remove. It's a razor blade down the back of it, shake it out, and then now you've got a soil amendment right there. So that's one of the benefits.
Is that the plan then, is you lay them out to stop the erosion once you have the established grasses? You have to go ahead and pick them back up?
Right.
Okay.
Again, back to my net environmental impact concept, very little is going to the landfill there. And if that's truly photodegradable, theoretically, it's going to break down there. My preference is, honestly, it gets picked up and just a small bundle of that material makes its way to the landfill, as opposed to a silt fence or a straw wattle. I mean, we've got, dumpsters full of that, so.
I have an area of construction, we laid out the blankets after it was seeded, and we have an established grass now. Will the blankets biodegrade eventually, or?
There is a bio and a photodegradable product. If it looks like all like a jute net in between, that is a biodegradable. That's the superior product. And yes, that will disappear over time. The photodegradable, again, they're tough to mow, they're tough to handle. If a mower goes over them, that's when the entire blanket can be pulled up, and then you've got a big ball of nylon-looking material. So kind of tough to handle. So, yeah, I'll stick around for a little while. If anybody has questions, feel free to track me down. Otherwise, my email address is up there. Feel free to reach out. And thank you guys for your time, and appreciate you.